Hello booktube, this is Bryde's booktube. I'm Danielle and this is my next video. Disclaimer as usual, I am a blind booktuber. I am not good with filming. I think I have lined my camera up fairly accurately today. However, I'm sorry if I haven't. I think I can see the outline of my face in that camera, but I don't know if it's my eyes or my hair. I'm not sure what you're seeing right now. I know some other blind people who have YouTube channels have great people in their lives who can edit and film for them, but I haven't really got that kind of thing available, so I'm just going with it because I want to have this channel, and there we go. So I haven't done a video since February because I was busy with university, and then the whole coronavirus shenanigans went crazy and I haven't done anything for this channel for a long time. Also, I wasn't getting many views because I haven't really publicised this well, and when I have, it's not worked. But I love doing this, and I don't know, I just thought maybe if I get back into it, I could try and find this, in this time where I'm not doing an awful lot, I could try and share it a bit more and spread the word. Plus, I've read a lot of books, and I'm finding, like, at the moment in this whole lockdown situation, it's kind of gradually opening up, but in this situation, I'm finding that a lot of people, people around me aren't bookworms, so I don't get to talk about books, whereas in this channel, I do get to talk about books. Sorry if I look a bit funny today. I have got really bad allergies, and the sound you can hear is my parents' garden. I'm in the summer house kind of thing right now, but my parents' garden is out there, and there's a water feature and some birds. I did get on my Echo Dot some library sounds, which I much prefer, but I love the library sound. That pen scratching is a bit annoying, and also the birds are already chirping, so we'll just leave it with that. Anyway, so my last video, I just checked last night, and I realised that my book review, my book reviews tend to be getting more views because people, like I do, are looking up reviews for certain books and they're finding my reviews. However, I only realised that last night, and since then I have read 23 more books this year. I have finished 36 books this year. My reading goal is to read 100. It's already May. I'm hoping I can get there. I'm reading a lot. However, what I've been reading a lot lately is a lot of fantasy, and that's great, but it also is not like a really fluffy, easy read. So, I just haven't been flying through pages like I had more so in April or March. But I still have read a fair few books in May. So I've read 23 more books, and I want to do more book reviews, but at the moment I also just want to go through the books I have read since my last review, which was Of Woven and Moonlight, which I read in early February. So without further ado, let's go into the books I read. So after Woven and Moonlight, I read All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This is a young adult fantasy, quite kind of pirate high seas adventure, which I loved. Wasn't sure what to think about this, but I really, before I read it, but I really enjoyed it. It's about this princess, Amora, and she's kind of got to earn her place as kind of the next, kind of princess, or kind of the next leader of this kind of continent called, it's been a long time since I read this, I don't remember what it was called. Oh my word, I can't remember what it's called now. Yeah, but she is now having to prove herself, and when her kind of proving herself, the ceremony where she has to use some soul magic, where she has to use bones and teeth and things like that to hurt people through her magic. When it all goes wrong, she then kind of gets one chance to run away with this pirate, and as she goes out, she tends to her place is called Veridia. Remember it now. The continent's called Veridia. But she realises as she goes adventuring with this pirate that her place isn't as happy as it seems. Her people aren't as happy as they seem. Her father's kind of covered up a bit of the problems going on in that society. So that's going on for her, and I really enjoyed this. I thought that the main character was so passionate about helping others and not being seen as someone who would not do anything for other people because she's a princess. People think she's not, she's not going to be kind or whatever else to other people, but she proves that she is. Then I think I rated that like 5 stars. I've got a meeting in like half an hour, so let's hope I can wrap this up in half an hour before. Okay, I've got really bad allergies today, so I'm really sorry about that as well. Then I read The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. Everyone was going on about this book. The blurb said something like, Alessandra has 3 goals. 1, woo the Shadow King. 2, marry the Shadow King. And 3, kill him and take his power. And apparently it was kind of blurbed as a very Slytherin fantasy. I didn't know how I'd feel about this, but I loved it. It almost felt very kind of ancient Greek or Roman, kind of some of the places, but it wasn't really stated as such whether it was based off of kind of more Roman or not, or what kind of mythology or any, but it did seem to me to be a bit kind of more Greek inspired, but I might be wrong. And it's this character, this girl her father's trying to marry her off to some really boring person, and she's like, no, I'm not doing that, I'm gonna go and do what I want. Father, you have to follow what I want to do. And he's a bit like, now I'm a bit unsure, and she is basically trying to seduce the Shadow King and then marry him so she can be powerful because she wants to feel powerful. But it's also her growth in between times, how she actually learns from these people she meets there, how she actually maybe confronts her own values, how she learns to, I don't know, she tends to learn some different things about herself and other people around her. I think she is quite a fun character to get behind. I thought she might be, when I thought Slytherin, I thought she'd be a horrible character, but I just think she has very questionable intentions and is probably just wanting to wreak a bit of havoc. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know if there's another one or not. All the Stars and Teeth, I think, has a second one coming out next year. I don't know about The Shadows Between Us. I think there might be a second one next year. I don't know. Might be a standalone. Then I read a very different book. I read Even If It Hurts by Marnie Mann. This was just, I was scrolling through Goodreads reviews. I was like, don't know what to read. I've read a couple of fantasies now. I want to read something different. So this is fairly short and sweet. It is an adult romance about Chloe Kennedy. She is a student at university. She's doing some kind of course, and then she does a kind of study abroad type thing, and she goes to London for a kind of internship or something like that, and she meets this boy or this guy, and I don't know, it was very I'll carry on with the plot really. It was then later on she is now married to someone different, and this boy walks back into her life. So I didn't like the boy she went back to. The boy she met in London. She went to London and he came back to her, is what I mean. Or she went back to him and he came back to her. Or they bumped into each other later on. I thought when they first met, it was like she was just in class meeting him, and it was like, I looked at him and I couldn't look away, I couldn't focus on my class. I'm like, whoa, okay. Like, you've just moved to a new country and you've just started class. I mean, maybe he's nice looking, but like, it just felt very instant. Whereas with the guy she married later on, I mean, it probably was slightly insta-lovey, but it was also a little bit more of a kind of, let's get to know each other, yeah, sure, kind of thing. And they had more of a deeper connection, I think. They had more, whereas I think in some ways, because there was some sexual content in this, which made me slightly uncomfortable, because I'm not always a fan of a lot of sexual content in books. Depends on the situation and how well it's written and how much it is. I don't like it too much. But it almost seemed like this guy in London was like, oh, you're so innocent, you've never had a boyfriend, you sweet thing. Like, I think he was really, like, you know, I don't know, I just thought he was a bit, he treated her like a little girl. I was just a bit like, that's not something I like in a book. I mean, maybe it was meant to be kind of cutesy that they had this kind of first attraction thing. I don't know, but I wasn't really a fan. But then I did like it more as the book went on, and it was clear when she thought she would never see this boy again, that her emotions were really strong. And I was like getting teared up, and I was like, I don't even like this guy, why am I upset, why am I crying, you know? But then I realised, you know, she obviously cared about him a lot. And the more the book went, the more I looked into her connections with other people and her family, her friend, best friend, and other things that were going on in her life and the turmoil she was going through. And I did really enjoy it. I think I gave it 3.5, 4 stars, but it wasn't anything special, but it did make me feel things. Then I read Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This one was another random Goodreads search for something to read. This was a young adult contemporary. It's about this boy, Justice, and he is a African American boy. He is kind of juggling with expectations of a black young man, and the, you know, what people, the media, judge men, you know, that when they shoot people because they're black, not because of a crime. People always assume they've done something bad, and it's prejudice, and he's dealing with that. And he's taken he's obviously studied Martin Luther King. He loves debating. He's in a debate club. He really likes that kind of thing. And he ends up kind of writing a kind of journal to Martin Luther King, almost like, what would you have done if you were a teenage boy right now? How would you have reacted to that comment someone made to me? How would you have taken that, you know? And he had a best friend as well, who I think is black, and the rest of his friends were white. And I think there was also there's also like a couple of things to do with police brutality, and he's involved in an accident, and it's had him dealing with that and in the repercussions of that, and also the media's repercussions of that. But it was very thought-provoking. I quite liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I think there's also a sequel coming out, meant to come out in October, I think, but whether that's changed or not because of the virus, I don't know. Then I read Let the Willows Weep by Sherry Parnell. This was another random Goodreads review search, because I'm so unpicky with my book, TBR, that I just end up with all kinds of, you know, different things taking my fancy. This one was a book about, I think it was kind of deep south historical America, but in mining times, where this girl, her nickname was Byrd Dog, which I never quite got why she was called that. And she's telling her story about growing up and dealing with her family, her mum kind of not particularly being very loving, and different issues that she was growing up with. It was also another talk about, because she was white and she wasn't really supposed to be mixing with people that were black, and there were a lot of expectations of her. She was very much controlled by her mum's will for her, and, you know, she was often dealing with the feelings of feeling guilt and feeling worthless. And it was quite good. It was quite emotional. It was a lot of hard-hitting emotions, but I really enjoyed it. There were some nice moments too. There's good disability representation. There's a character with learning difficulties there. It was also talking about sort of mining and marriage and other things like that, and it was quite interesting, quite different to what else I've read this year. I actually recommended this to my nan, who reads historical fiction, and she bought it and really enjoyed it. I just remembered another book I haven't written down this list. I haven't added that to my thing yet. Okay, just remember now. Then I read Harley in the Sky by Akemi Dawn Bowman. This is a young adult contemporary, which I really enjoyed, about the daughter of a circus owner. So I think that her mum does all the kind of books and the kind of mathematics side of it, and the dad does all the kind of music competitions and things. And parents are like, you need to go to university and do what you want to, study and get really far in life. She also has a very mixed racial family. She's like part Chinese, part Italian, part Irish, part Japanese. She's very not quite in any community. She feels very kind of spread across everything. And she's a bit like, well, I want to do circus stuff. I want to be like you. I want to do all these things. She wants to be an aerialist. And they're like, no. We want you to go to university. We want you to do really well. And she's like, I don't want to do that. And then she runs away to another rival circus because she gets this chance. She takes it and she runs away. And it's about her dealing with mental health issues, depression, dealing with her very mixed race family, and how she feels and what she feels and what she knows about different sides of her family, what part of her community she feels she fits in. Dealing with family issues because she loves her parents and doesn't want to disappoint them. I relate to that, I think a lot of people do. You love your family, but you can't always do what they want you to do. I think for her it was a real battle with that. Also, friendships that perhaps she thinks are going to be best friendships and then kind of lead to not being best friends. There's quite a lot of really good representation in this. I think I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Then another of my favourite books this year was Most Likely by Sara Watson. I think there might be another one coming out, and if there is, I'm going to snap it right up. This book is about 4 girls who have known each other since they were 5. One of them will become the first female president. Which one is it going to be? Follows them in their senior year at high school, kind of finding out who they are. All we know is the person who becomes president marries a person with the last name of Diffenderfer, and throughout the book there is a character with that last name who tends to mix with each of those girls in different scenarios, so you never quite know who it's going to be. And there are some great twists, and I'll tell you about the characters. There's Ava. She is adopted from birth. She suffers with depression and feeling like she hasn't got a voice, feeling like she can't really speak up, and she gets anxious a lot. She doesn't feel she can ever speak up about how she feels, or she can't fight for what she believes in. She's very kind of afraid of speaking out, and she has mental health issues. She also loves art, which I think was quite a great character trait there. And she's also dealing with kind of being I think she's Latin American, I'm not sure, but I think she is, but she isn't really grown up, isn't really in that community. Her adopted mum isn't from a Latin background. Then there is CJ. She is dealing with kind of, she feels she's very tall. She feels very uncomfortable with how she looks. She's really tries at school, doesn't seem to get where she wants to go, even though she works really hard. Her grades, her best is just not at the level that gets her to good schools and things. She also does a lot of volunteering and does a lot of stuff to get somewhere, to try and do stuff. And she ends up meeting a boy who she works with, who is disabled, is in a wheelchair, so there's great real disabled representation there. There's also Jordan, who loves politics, she loves journalism, she wants to, I don't really like her as much, she wants to just go like, right, I want to be treated like an adult now, because I'm nearly 18, so I want to be involved in everything else, and that's fair enough, you know, but she's kind of perhaps not making best choices because of that. And then there's Martha, who is working at a cinema, dad's quite poor, she probably can't afford to go and live anywhere else because she's not got the money to, and she's dealing with her sexuality, so that's really interesting as well. So there's a huge amount of representation in this, and I literally just could not put this book down. I was literally so addicted to this. Gave it, well, 5 stars. If I could give it more, then I would give it more. Then another random Goodreads find was Old Fashioned by Candy Steiner. This was the 4th book in the Becker Brothers series. It was a series about these 4 boys, but I haven't read the other 3. I just saw that you could read it as a standalone. Needed a bit of a fun romance pick me up. This is when all this kind of virus stuff started kicking in, and I picked it up, and I enjoyed it. It's just a romance, really. It's about this woman. She's just got a job as a kind of I think like a sports massage, kind of dealing with medical stuff of boys and men who were sort of playing, I think it's like football or some kind of sport. She used to be a kind of stay-at-home mum. She used to be married to somebody who was not very nice. Then her boss is Jordan Becker, who is the oldest son of the Becker brothers. He's also adopted. He is also the captain of this team. I think it's football, baseball, something like that. And it's them finding about each other and dealing with other issues going on in the background. I think it would make more sense maybe if I read all the other books, but I enjoyed reading it as a standalone. I think I gave it 3 or 4 stars. It was quite enjoyable. Nothing really special, but it was quite cute. Very cute, actually. Quite adorable at times. It wasn't too graphic for me, sexual-wise, which some romances are. So I was quite happy that I enjoyed it as much as I did, because I wasn't sure if I would, and I really did. Then I read The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu, and I loved Marie Lu's Legend series. I absolutely loved it. But this premise didn't quite feel it for me. Just checking the time, because I've got 14 minutes. Because this one was a historical fantasy based on Mozart's older sister, and I felt a bit uncomfortable with that because of the fact that Mozart's older sister was real, and a lot of it was historical events, and it almost felt a bit more like a biography of Nannerl Mozart, who was his older sister. And there was some kind of slightly fairy tale-esque stuff there. It felt more like a middle grade or a kind of younger side of a young adult book. I did enjoy it. Some of the history was really exciting, and some of the slightly fairy tale-esque stuff was quite good, but it wasn't anything special for me. I'm going to have to whistle through some of these a bit more because I have a meeting and I'm not great at uploading these videos, so I don't want to have to do 2 parts. Then I read The Cursebreaker duology by Bridget Kemmerer, which was A Curse to Dark and Lonely and A Heart So Fierce and Broken. This, I have read Bridget Kemmerer before. I read Letters to the Lost, which is a very nice contemporary. But this series is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The first book follows Harper, who is snatched off of the streets of Washington DC, and taken to this fantasy kind of world where she meets Ren, this prince who is kind of stuck in a loop of the seasons because he's not broken the curse on himself, he's not found love, he's not managed to unbreak the curse. She's also got cerebral palsy, so it's great disability rep there. Really exciting. A second one is about his Prince Ren's war commander, Commander Grey, who realises some secrets about his own heritage and runs away to spare people he cares about, and meets this princess of a kind of neighbouring place who is trying to invade the kingdom of the kingdom that Prince Ren runs, because they're like, well, you know, you're not doing it very well. So he meets this princess and realises she doesn't agree with her mother's kind of tyranny, and it's about their story and how everyone kind of cares about each other. You know, Prince Ren cares about Grey, Grey cares about Prince Ren, Grey cares about Harper, Harper cares about Grey and Prince Ren. Prince Ren and Harper are in love, but they're all kind of pitted against each other because of this, and I just really enjoyed this. Then I read Look by Zan Romanov. This was a LGBT plus book about social media and how people are portrayed in media, and about this girl who accidentally posts a video of herself kissing another girl online. It then breaks up her and her boyfriend. She kind of deals with her sexuality and the outfall of the kind of doubt of what's happened. She's also kind of very famous as a kind of on a social media website called Flash. She's got quite a lot of followers. She's kind of quite superficial, and then she meets this girl, and she's kind of dealing with that and dealing with, you know, why am I even on this social media page? Why am I doing all this stuff that I don't really need to be doing? And it was really quite good. It was how she changed and how she dealt with her friendships and her family, and dealt with other people, kind of knowing other people who had a lot of money, people who had a lot of power, how they could control the media around them, and how people can make people vulnerable. I loved this. I really enjoy LGBT fiction. I am LGBT myself, so to read something like this, it's been really good. Then I read a really simple, fun little chick flick, which is Bridesmaids by Jane Costello. This book just had hundreds of weddings in it. It was about this girl called Evie, who was always being a bridesmaid for everyone else. And other things kept happening. She was bridesmaids at like 4 different weddings. She's never managed to hold down a lover herself. She kind of dates the people for a short amount of time and then never ends up seeing them for much longer. And she's there at the weddings, and she keeps bumping into her exes at weddings, and she's there sorting out all her friends' dramas, and then she kind of ends up meeting a guy of her own. But the chapters are so short, it's so light-hearted and funny. It's just, I just couldn't stop laughing at this book. I would whip through it because the chapters were so short, and each chapter had like a little mini funny cliffhanger. So you could stop at any point, but I never did because it was just so fun, and I loved it. It was nothing special, but I really, really enjoyed it just for fun. The writing style was comical. Then I read Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This is a adult thriller by the same writer as Gone Girl. This is about a news reporter called Camille who has come back to her hometown to investigate the two murders of little girls, 10-year-old girls, and she's a newspaper kind of writer. She's kind of using her mum's kind of status in this town as a kind of way to look into what's happened. But as she starts learning what's happening, she's realising that a lot of the things that are happening are more and more kind of closer to home than she realises. Also deals with a lot of mental health stuff, huge triggers there for cutting and abuse, and kind of Munchausen syndrome, or by proxy hypochondriac. Is quite harrowing at times. I didn't quite get into this. It was probably the wrong time for me to read it. Maybe another time it might have been better for me, but at that time it was too heavy after reading Bridesmaids to reading this. Then I read The Two Lives of Lydia Byrd. This was fantastic. It's by Josie Silver. This is a adult book about this girl. Her fiance has been killed. She's going through a serious grief at the moment with her loss for him. She's dealing with that. then she somehow ends up going to sleep and waking up in this alternate kind of world where she is able to kind of, life is carrying on with Freddie, her fiance, but she's starting to realise as time goes along, she's kind of juggling 2 lives. She's finding it hard to adjust to her life without Freddie because she's still seeing him sometimes, and she's realising that with Freddie there's things that are different now because she's missing most of the time because she's not asleep the whole time. And she's kind of going through a lot of the stages of grief in this book. It's heartwarming at times, it's sad at times. She's got a very close relationship with her sister and her mum. It's quite emotional, it's quite dramatic at times, but in a kind of nice way. Like it's, she makes decisions, but maybe they end up being the right decisions for her. And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of, a real coming of age as such, but coming through phase of your life, that sort of thing. Then I read Haven 4 by Sara, Holland. This was another young adult fantasy. This was about a girl called Maddie. Her uncle owns this inn, which is like the kind of neutral territory between these 3 worlds, and she gets there for the summer. She wants to kind of be the innkeeper in the future. She wants to see her boyfriend, who's this kind of guy from this other kind of icy world. Then when she gets there, she realises that things aren't quite right, things are going wrong, a lot of secrets are happening. I loved it because this book, you know, you start off, she knows this world, she's not been thrown into something new. She knows it and she loves it, but it's not quite the same. She's having to step up and take responsibilities. She's also bisexual, which is a great representation. There's going to be a second one, and I'm really hoping that she will pursue the girl that she meets in this book, because I like this girl in the book. Then, I'm checking the time again. 5 minutes. I'm not going to do it in 5 minutes. I read The Good Girl's Guide to Murder series 1 and 2 by Holly Jackson. It's about a girl with a podcast who she's doing a podcast for her extended project qualification for her A-levels, and she is doing a podcast on a murder that happened, and she's uncovering it because it happened quite a long time ago, and she's wanting to find out what happened and why it happened, and she's trying to prove someone's innocence. She's doing a podcast or a kind of a project reports thing on what happened 5 years ago. And there's a sequel, Good Girl Bad Blood, which I think I found slightly triggering because it was after she'd gone through what she went through in the first book. Pippa, the girl, had probably, I would say, PTSD. It never quite said it, but definitely kind of reading it, it was not quite as light. I mean, not saying the first one was light, it was dark in places, but the girl's home life and some of her other relationships with friends were a bit lighter, but the events of the first book changed that a bit. I'm going to do one more book, and then that stops by May, because these are the books I read in February, March and April, but I decided now that I'm running out of time, I will do a May wrap-up with my May books, but I will give you the last one that I read, and then I will go and read at the end of May, so maybe in the weekend, I will record the books I read in May. So then I read Time of Our Lives by Emily Wibberley and Austin, I can't remember his name, and basically this book follows a boy and a girl, Juniper and Fitz has a mum with early onset Alzheimer's. He does not want to go to university. He does not want to leave his mum. He just resents his brother, his dad, for leaving them in this situation. He does not want to go to university, but his mum is like, you know what? I want you to go and see what's out there. I want you to go and see if you don't want to go anywhere first before you make that choice. Then there's Juniper. And Juniper, she wants to go far away from her big Mexican family. She wants to see the world and do what she wants to do. And I can relate to that. You know, I get that. You can go to any city you want to go to. But then she kind of realises they kind of learn from each other as they meet on this college touring around universities. They keep bumping into each other, and I think Fitz realises maybe he doesn't want to be at home all the time, and Juniper realises maybe she doesn't want to be away from her family too far. So it's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna have to stop this video because I've got my meeting now. However, I really enjoy wrapping up all the books I read from February to May to April. I might mention a couple of the last books I mentioned just now again with a bit more detail later on, because I've kind of not said what I needed to about them. But I hope you enjoyed this video. There will be more content from me soon, and I really appreciate you watching this. Please like and subscribe and share.